Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode. Whew, I get out of breath sometimes when I say that. And I was just to our guest here, I was rattling off some of the things that have happened to EdUp lately. And a big accomplishment for us is that we were, by Listen Notes, finally got into the top 1.5% of worldwide podcasts here at the EdUp Experience. So we continue to rock on as we get close to our 6th anniversary. Now over 1,200 episodes, over 425 presidents interviewed on this podcast, so many insights and white papers, and now we're doing a conference, Higher Ed PodCon 2. If you don't know, I'm going to tell you, it's in Cleveland, Ohio, on the campus of Tri-C Cuyahoga Community College, July 15th and 16th, or 16th and 17th. I better check on that. I think it's a Thursday, Friday, and we'll have our second ever Higher Ed PodCon. Last year we had over 150 people. This year we think we're going to have over 300 people at this conference talking all about higher education, podcasting, and how podcasting can boost brands and give you more of an advantage. So with that, I'm going to bring in my guest co-host. Now that I did all that in one breath, by the way, which I hope you guys find impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, he's my guest host. He's Samir Qureshi. He is the CEO of NAC. What's going on, Samir? How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure.
So Samir, I got to tell you, I was at EDUcause recently, and I'm walking down the hall, and this lady grabs me, and she goes, "I know you. You do the EdUp podcast." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I just listened to this amazing man at this company, and I can't remember his name, Sammy or something like that." I said, "Yeah, I think it is Sammy. You're pretty close." No, I said, "Samir." And she goes, "Oh my gosh. Yes. The work that he's doing is so awesome." So look at that. You're an instant celebrity, just like that. Well, how do you feel about that, Samir?
Hey, I feel good. There's been some news in our world, though, and I'm actually now the outgoing CEO. While I founded the company about 11 years ago, we just raised a round of funding and decided I could bring in the big guns. And so we hired Megan Duesenberry, who spent 17 years at Kaplan and the last 3 years at AQ. So she's actually just taken over the helm now and transitioning out as CEO. I'll remain on the board as executive chairman.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of change, but a lot of excitement nonetheless. And we'll see where we can take it from here.
Maybe you'll be a podcast host next. Who knows?
That's right.
We got a great interview, a great guest today to get into. I've had now come across this man twice, and at various conferences, and I think it's like that friend that you meet after 20 years, and you immediately fight. Like from the minute we met each other, we're like fall into this in-depth conversation about everything. It's like we're having a beer on a porch 15 years ago and catching up. Ladies and gentlemen, he's Dr. Mike Hobbs. He's the president at Georgia Highlands College, part of the University of Georgia system. Mike, welcome to the mic.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I've listened to a lot of your podcast, and like you said, the first time I heard you speak, I said, I got to talk to this guy. In higher education, a lot of the times, people come up through either the instructional side or they come up through the student service side. And as you grow in your career, you develop into different type of personalities. And I could tell right away that you are passionate about students and about student services. And so of course, I think I tackled you after your session because I wasn't going to let you get away. I was like, man, I was texting people back on campus. We got to get this guy on our campus. More people need to hear your voice and what you're saying, and especially in higher ed, because a lot of times, it's a lot of churning of the wheel. And we forget the real reason that anybody goes into higher ed is because we know generally what it did for us, and we want to share that with other people. And that's always been my philosophy. If you go into higher education for money, you probably made a bad choice. But if you will go into higher education because you like to change people's lives and you like to give people opportunities, then there's no better place to work.
I wonder if you've coined yet Mike Hobbs getting them jobs.
Mike Hobbs, no, I haven't said that, but I am going to borrow it. I love it.
Yeah, it's yours now. I mean, you could even add for the mobs of students, right? Because you guys are growing so rapidly. But level set for us, assume somebody's here that hasn't heard of Georgia Highlands College.
Sure.
Where are you? Who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
If you're afraid of success, this message isn't for you. Every year, higher ed talks about change. But Insights EDU 2026, it's the catalyst. The Modern Learner Report drops here first, revealing how learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. Spoiler, most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, real strategy, real data, only built for leaders ready to own their transformation. Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. EdUp Experience has brought you powerful conversations with more than 400 college presidents and higher ed leaders, over 1,000 episodes and counting. Now, we're inviting you to join us in shaping the future of higher ed podcasting. For just $5.99 a month, you lock in that rate for life, but only if you sign up before December 31st, 2025. As a supporter, you'll get ad-free early access to episodes. Prices go up after December 31st, but your rate never will. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and join our community today.
Right, absolutely. So Georgia Highlands is a part of the University System of Georgia. There's 26 colleges in the USG system. There's 4 categories. I like to break it down to 3 because 2 of them are really close. One is the research institutions. And of course, that's UGA, Georgia Tech, Augusta Medical School, Georgia State. And then you have the comprehensive and the state universities, which is your Kennesaw States, Southern Georgia, North Georgia. And then you have what's called state colleges within inside the university system. And there's 9 of us. Georgia Highlands is the second largest one of us, and we're tracking down the largest every day. And she's the president there. She and I have a great relationship. But we're the second largest. We have about 5,904 students as of this fall. We're up 1,100 students in the last 3 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, I know, 1,100 students in 3 years. So, and what's really amazing about that, when I first got here, everyone, we like to say we're the best kept secret. We're the best kept secret because we're only $105 a credit hour. So you can get a bachelor's degree from Georgia Highlands for under $15,000. And we have in-person classes, online classes, hybrid classes. We have the traditional 16-week semester. We have the 8-week semester. So we really work around with our students. So 81% of my students, of the 5,900, 81% of my students have a job. 47% of my students work full-time. And I guarantee you that some of those were too busy to even answer that survey because I think those numbers are light. But my students are generally first generation. They're students who have come back for career change, or we just had a young gentleman of 77 years old, was a paramedic his whole life, always wanted to go to nursing school, and came back and finished nursing school with a bachelor's degree in nursing for under $15,000. That's what's so great about the state colleges. And a couple more key facts: 85% of my graduates stay in Northwest Georgia. Now, what does that mean? That means if you're a manufacturing, or you're a business and industry, or you're a small business owner, or whatever field that you're in, your talent is sitting in my classrooms. And so that's what we really work to build, is to make sure that we're putting out graduates that are ready for the workforce in our region. Now the other 15%, we had a young man get into Yale Med School, another person got into Cambridge in England. So we have a good mix, but really and truly, I see us as the boots on the ground college. My graduates have what I like to call grit. They go into a situation and have to put their shoulder into it or put their foot back a little bit. My graduates are a little tougher than somebody that everything's just handed to. And I think that's why I fight for my graduates. I think that's why I'm so passionate about it.
And I'll pass to you, Samir, in just a second, but I do want to note that, part of the knock on higher ed, at least from our, I don't know who, media detractors, whomever, is it's the value of higher ed, and it's
Right.
too expensive and nobody can afford it. And sometimes you just go, but did you really look deep
Right.
into the colleges and universities within those that are out there? Yes, some are really, really expensive. And then there are others that that are not, where you can get a really high quality education. A bachelor's degree under 15 grand is amazing. And maybe people are just confused.
Well, Joe, I'd like to say, and definitely want to hear Samir's thoughts as well. But I think I told you when I first met you that I'm dying to debate Mike Rowe. I love and adore Mike Rowe, but he says things in an aggregate manner where he clumps everybody in together and compares us all to Harvard and Yale. And of all the presidents that are out there, they are in the 1.005% of these of us other presidents who are putting out a good product at a good price and giving an experience that I think that you can't get in K-12. Samir, as I had told Joe, I always wanted to run for a political office, so I ran for school board, and I won a school board seat. Yeah, that was somebody told me about self-torture. Being on a school board, especially during COVID and during the years that the politicians were saying, go yell at your school board members. And we were like, why are you yelling at us? But what I did notice on the school is that K-12 right now is trying to survive with the resources that it has. And so as Joe and I were talking about, they focus on that top 10%, that's been doing great since the first grade. And they're in honors programs, and we're knowing that they're going to hit the top high tops. And then they focus on that bottom 10% that has food insecurities, housing insecurities, or domestic issues. And that other 80% that's just kind of walking around, kind of just, I refer to it as Pavlov's dogs. You ring a bell, they go to first period. Ring a bell, they go to second period. Ring a bell, they go to PE. Ring a bell, they go home. And they do that for 12 years. And then they graduate and they go work at a job, or they come to college and that bell stops ringing. And so where I want to challenge Mike Rowe, not only, I know he knows this because everybody touts this stat, that a college degree at Georgia Highlands is worth $1.4 million in a lifetime versus a person that doesn't have a college degree. And Joe, I dug in a little deeper in that because I thought, if financial, and we know that a lot of the kids that are coming out of K-12 right now, wellness and work-life balance is more important than money. So let's take out the $1.4 million in earning. Did you know that a college graduate generally lives 10 years longer than a non-college graduate? A non-college graduate is 15 to 17% more likely to have diabetes, 15 to 20% more likely to binge drink and binge smoke, and I think 7% more likely not to participate in physical activity. And so I think as a college education, and like you said, Joe, that, there's people out there saying it's not worth the paper it's written on. I don't disagree with that. We have a perception problem. And it's my job as a president, and especially as a state college president, to be out there fighting for my students. And really, and I'll be honest with you too, we've got to rebrand ourselves. We've got to show why we're more important than not going to college. And I think a lot of it comes back to problem solving. Samir, I gave Joe an example of to get a college degree. Let's say you're going to get Mike Rowe's college degree in theater. And so he's got to take 40 classes to get that theater degree. Well, that's 40 different professors that he's got to figure out how to get through to earn that college degree. That's 40 different people that are masters in their craft that he has got to figure out to get through to get that college degree. And that's 40 professors. And I look at that as that's also 40 customers, 40 patients, 40 projects, 40 clients, 40 different people that you got to figure out how to make happy to get that college degree. And then, so as an employer of talent, I can look at the college classes that you took and see how you did in those college classes. And then that should say to me that if you completed those 40 classes and you made those professors happy, there's a good chance you're going to be able to make me happy as an employer. So I think some of it is the competition out there. Business industry needs them. But and we need them too. I mean, full disclosure, 33% of my budget is based off of tuition and fees, and we need them too. But that's not why I'm so passionate about it. I'm passionate about it because I've seen what it did in my life, and I've seen what it's done with other people's lives. And you know, as you know, I'm a big believer in you are who you surround yourself with, and I think if you surround yourself with good people, good things happen.
Samir, over to you. But in one question, I think that comes out of this that may burn the ears of our listener for years to come is it theater or theater? You're going to have to decide, Samir.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Tomato, tomato. I'll go with either. Mike, it's amazing to hear sort of the growth you've had as an institution. And I have a deep, deep admiration for state colleges. I came to the States as a kid, as an immigrant with my mom, single mom, put us through school. I was not a great student. I was maybe towards the bottom percentile as far as performance, and tutoring sort of reshaped that for me. I ended up becoming student body president of St. Petersburg College, which, similar to Georgia, is part of a state college system, formerly community college, now sort of upgraded to four-year baccalaureates. And I was an early college student that ran for student body president. And so I learned so much about higher ed at a young age, and the intimate challenges that state and community colleges more particularly face when compared to a four-year research comprehensive institution are quite unique. And I'm curious, I mean, you've had some phenomenal growth from an enrollment perspective, and then adding new programs and such. And I'm sure all that has sort of compounded. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, like, what was the secret sauce that really helped drive that growth that you all have ultimately benefited from as an institution?
Well, I think it was a lot of things. COVID hit us pretty hard. So before COVID, we had 6,200 students, and we dropped down to 4,700. And that's, I was telling you earlier, my first year as a freshman president ever had a $2.9 million budget cut, and we had to RIF 31 faculty, 31 staff. And so you can imagine as a new president coming in. So a lot of it was morale within our own system. We had a lot of people who are still working from home, and I had to make some tough decisions and made a lot of people unhappy. But eventually I said, you got to come back. You've got to physically be here. I'm not because it's not so much that they can't do their job at home, but there's so many people that are walking our halls, or that park in our parking lots and think about coming to college, but they never walk in. And those people can be there. So I think one of the things was motivation with our own people, with our own faculty and staff. And I think getting them back together on campus was a big piece. Another big piece was we were using regional, not even regional, we were using a advertising company from North Carolina. And so we were spending a $250,000 to $500,000 a year with them, and I brought them in, and we're all sitting at this table, and I'm sitting there looking at them, and I kept asking, so tell me, when you talk to Georgia Highlands students, da 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 da, and I picked up, and Joe, you'd picked up on this too. He said, well, when we talk to students between the ages of 18 and 24, and I was like, that's a red flag. Me? Yeah. And so I said, so when you talk to Georgia Highlands students, how did you communicate? Well, we pulled data, this, that, and the other. Basically, they hadn't. And then finally, I looked around the table and I said, hey, we're a bunch of 50-year-old white guys. And guess what? That is not my population of students. And so we picked a local company here in our area, in Cartersville, and so they've been doing some local branding, and we stopped advertising it on a Roku in California. We're advertising locally. We were just named the #1 college in the university system for online education. And a lot of that goes to the effort that our faculty and staff put into their classes. And if you remember, I was telling you earlier that 85% of my graduates stay in Northwest Georgia. And so what that means is that most of my employees here have either went to Georgia Highlands, or like you, Samir, went to a state college similar to us. And so my employees know the importance of a Pell Grant check, or a work study job, or the food bank. And so when your employees know that, it comes through and the students see that. And I think it's just a ball that's been rolling down the hill. Some great things have happened. And I think hiring good people, my staff hires good people. And we do like to try to hire our own. like I've always had a philosophy, I will not hire you in financial aid if you did not go to school in financial aid. Because if you don't know how important that financial aid check is, I
Sure.
don't want you to be the one that's keeping it from getting in and out. But Samir, I was also raised by a single mom, and my dad left us when I was 6. They had lost a couple of children, and uh, my mom was very crafty and would all get me into private school. And then when they would figure she wasn't going to pay, I'd get kicked out and have to go back to public school. But I remember, I remember those good times in private school, and I took those back to the public school. And I too was in SGA and got really involved. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think the things that we memorize in college are as important as the experiences that we have in college.
That's
I
right.
probably can't tell you 10 things I memorized, but I guarantee I can tell you 110 experiences I had, 110 things I messed up, 110 things I learned from. And so what I would say to Mike Rove, he was on here with me, is Mike, it's not about the piece of paper on the wall. Yeah, that is just a piece of paper, but it's the experience, and it's learning to live with people that have high ambitions for their self. And what I mean by that is if you think about when you're growing up, when we all grow up with people that our friends and relationships are determined by zip code. And then when we come to college, our friends and relationships are determined by interest. And so that's and I have no proof behind this or statistics, but I think that's why college relationships last longer than your high school friendships because they're
Absolutely.
built on interest and not just built because we had the same zip code. Uh,
That's right.
but Samir,
Yeah.
one day I'll have to tell you how I end up with my people love to hear the story. We don't have time for it today, but I'll have to tell you the story how my two mothers ended up in a Mexican jail. People love to hear it. My mother and stepmother become buddies after my father died. So we'll tell you that story another time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love
Yeah.
it. There's so much there. Mike, one of the things that I couldn't agree with you more on is that idea of sort of co-curricular and community aspects of being on campus. I was an undergrad student at University of Florida. That's where I finished my bachelor's degree. And, I met my co-founders who I ultimately launched NAC with there. And so I always say, had I not gone to UF as a Gator, I would have never started this company. And we were founded on campus, but I ended up going off and working before coming back to Gainesville, launching the company. And now 11 years later, 20 million plus raised on the company. I still attribute a lot of the value I got from University of Florida, which is also a very affordable campus, to sort of those pieces outside of the classroom. I wasn't learning to build the business in the classroom. I was learning by doing around me with my classmates and my colleagues. And so couldn't agree with you more. One question I have for you, and I think it's again phenomenal to just see the momentum you've generated both as a leader individually, but then as the institution. You've been recognized as a finalist for the Aspen Prize, which is no small feat. You've received the Paragon Award. Obviously that means Georgia Highlands has a massive commitment to student success. How do you all think about sort of the pathways that genuinely help students persist, not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom, right? There's this whole focus now around career outcomes and project-based learning, work-based learning,
Right.
but you still got to persist academically, and you got to be able to do that as well. And as you think about the demands on student sort of finances, the time, sort of we're dealing in a very uncertain period financially, inflation's high, like all these different things are coming about. How do you really ensure you've got an environment for students to ultimately persist and complete?
If you're afraid of success, go ahead and tune out because this segment is not for you. Every year, Higher Ed talks about change, but Insights EDU 2026, that's not another conference. It's the catalyst. It's where fresh data drops, revealing real insights on how modern learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. And here's a spoiler for higher ed leaders. Most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach, February 17th to the 19th, 2026, in Fort Lauderdale. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, 40 sessions, zero fluff. We're talking unfiltered strategy, AI integrations, and forward thinking built for the leaders who want to disrupt before they're disrupted. So here's the question. Are you ready to lead transformation or be overtaken by it? Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. The EdUp experience has delivered over 1,000 episodes with higher ed leaders from around the world. Now you can support the show for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life when you join before December 31st, 2025. You'll enjoy ad-free early access to episodes. Go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and secure your lifetime rate today.
Yeah, I think really it's listening to your community. And what I mean by that is listening to what jobs are out there, what benefits are out there, what is a good pathway for our students. And Samir, think about this. And why do colleges wait to the junior and senior year to start doing proposals, projects, internships, co-ops, presentations? Can you imagine spending 16 weeks in a room with someone and you don't know their name? You don't know what they do for a living. You don't know what they'd like to do for fun. So I taught economics for 16 years at Sanford University. And you know what I taught on the first day of classes? Every single time I taught a class, the first day of classes, you know what I taught? Absolutely nothing. I went around the room and I made the students tell me, their name, where they were from, why they were taking the class, what they were majoring in, what is something that's interesting to them. And then for the next 16 weeks, I had those packed in the back of my head, and I could say, how's your mom doing? Or, how's raising that new puppy? I think that and I go back to my experience in K-12. If you have children or anybody has children, first through third grade, you tell a kid that he or she can't go to school and they're in the first and second grade, they will literally cry and pout because they can't go to school. And think about what we do K through first and second grade is we do workstations, we do projects. They may be a turkey plate with your hand, but you're still doing activity. And then starting in the third and fourth grade, we start racking and stacking them. And so what happens when they come to college, and then we start racking and stacking them? So what I have done is I've challenged my faculty. Move the presentations, the projects, the co-ops, the internships, the work studies, the ambassador positions. Move that stuff to the freshman year. Because guess what? If you wait till the junior year, you'll never see some of those students. And so then I have to go out into business and industry and say, okay, I need you to mentor somebody. I need you. I really love you to have a paid internship. That's where I want to be, paid internship. But then if not, how about a non-paid internship where they get academic credit? Okay, how about you got somebody that works on a project? Okay, you don't have time to do that. How about you as a business leader, small business leader? What if I assign you one student a semester and your only requirement is to go to lunch with him or her 3 times in the semester? And so we have a local restaurant that's really nice, and their owner he's a little bit, and he was like, "What do you want me to do? Have them wait tables?" And I said, "Yeah, if that's what you want them to do, but I really want them to learn so that on their resume, because remember that piece of paper, Mike Rowe is right about that piece of paper on the wall, but that resume piece of paper is going to say that you worked at X restaurant for X person, and everybody in our region knows who this guy is, and you made it through an internship or even just a mentorship with him." So to answer your question, what am I doing to not be the best kept secret? And that's get out there and talk to everybody. I am, as a president of a state college, it is my job to be our greatest cheerleader. And so I'm constantly out there. I'm constantly asking for scholarship money. I'm also trying to find money to help sustain my faculty. That is so hard. I don't want to run over time, so Joe, let me know when we're getting close. But we have a program. I want to tell you about this program because I think it's amazing, and I have to give Dr. Lisa Jellum credit for it because she had already it came. I started in June. We signed the contract in September, but she had done a lot of work before September. But we signed an agreement with Atrium Healthcare. So if you come into Georgia Highlands in so we have 42-year programs, and we have 10 bachelor's degree, with bachelor degree 11, 12, and 13 on the docket. So we'll hopefully have those by next fall. But if you do our 2-year nursing degree or our 4-year bachelor's degree, Atrium Healthcare picks up tuition fees, books, supplies, shoes, stethoscope, out the door.
Yep.
Now you have a 2-year commitment with them after you graduate, or however much of the scholarship that you took out. Let's say, 2-year degree from us, $7,500. So let's say Wellstar wants to sign you to be a nurse with them, and they're going to pay you a $10,000 sign-on bonus. Well, you can buy out, you can give back your scholarship, and then, or either work 2 years at the
And
going
wipe it. Yeah.
rate. But here's the thing, less than 10% of that money goes to scholarships and to the students. Now, so it was over $7 million. 50% of it went to upgrade our labs. We have the very best lab. University of Georgia, Georgia State, all the big dogs come and look at our labs because with the money Atrium Healthcare gave us, we have a mannequin that can have a baby, and both the mannequin and the baby can go into distress. It's the craziest thing. But that still isn't where the best value came from. The best value came from that they're allowing me to pay a supplement to my nursing faculty. Now, why is that important? Remember, I was telling you earlier, we're 30 miles out of Atlanta. Well, Kennesaw State, which is a state university, is 15 miles from us. They can pay 30 to 40% higher than us. Georgia Tech and Georgia State can pay 50 to 60%, almost sometimes double what we can pay. And so I'm going to lose faculty. And so if by paying my faculty a supplement, they're not going to drive into Atlanta if I can get the salaries close. Now, here's what's miraculous about that. Last year was the first time in 15 years we had 100% retention of our nurse faculty.
Wow.
100%. What's even better, are you familiar with the NCLEX?
Of course. Yeah. We've had campuses work with us and attribute the increase in NCLEX scores due to our programmings.
Well, you're going to love this. Our average NCLEX is 94% pass rate.
Wow.
94%. The national average is 83%. Guess what ours was last May?
7.3%.
100%.
Wow.
We had 109 take it and 109 passed it. And 95 of them were signed up with Atrium Healthcare. So imagine you're the HR director for Atrium Healthcare and you got 90 nurses showing up to work on your doorstep come August 1.
Yeah.
So that's how we keep it going. We
Yeah.
become part of. I'm sure you're familiar with what is it? Jim Collins, Good to Great, and his
Yeah.
flywheel. It's our chancellor talks about the flywheel. We keep putting good positive vibes out. If something, I always look for positive. Yeah, I'm an optimist, and there's always tomorrow. And put one foot in front. And Samir, I'd love to hear more about your mom. If she was anything like mine, my mother was very much an optimist. They had lost 3 children, and that was the reason my dad had left. I guess he thought, and so she and I, we would always move in the middle of the night. She'd always tell me we're going somewhere better. You don't need your clothes, you don't need your toys. You're going to get better toys, better clothes. And we used to do what we called camping in the rest areas. And but I was never scared. I always knew the next day was going to be better. And Samir, when I graduated from college, now my mom, to her defense, she was a little crafty. She may have caught a case or two. She was a little. That's how her and my stepmother ended up in a Mexican jail.
Surprise!
But I know, right? You almost can't make this stuff up. But when I graduated from college, she had given me an envelope, with a card in it. So as cool as she was, I figured it was, for sodas and chips, my spring, my graduation trip. And we stopped in Texaco in Opelika. And my friend who looked old enough to buy snacks and chips was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go." And I was like, "Hey, I got money in this graduation card." And I opened it up, and she had put me a little money in there, but this white receipt falls out on the ground. I'm like, "What in the world is that?" And I reached down and I pick it up, and she had paid for one college semester. Back then, you could pay for the whole semester with one price at the local junior college that I ended up becoming vice president of.
Awesome.
Years later. And so
that's a beautiful story. There's something about moms that I think is never appreciated enough. I think they have one of the hardest jobs in the world. And, I think education, as much as there's scrutiny and a question as far as the value of it, I think most folks can still look at it and say, yeah, this is still worth it. And those that question it, I welcome that criticism at times, because I do believe for a long time, like institutions were allergic to this idea of change and to the idea of looking at a student as a true customer because ultimately they're paying. Sure, it may
Right.
be subsidized by sort of a student loan, but ultimately that, in an environment like this, that's not always going to be there. And so what I love about the story of Georgia Highlands is that there's such a focus not just on student retention and graduation, but on that career side as well. And so I know these allied health programs and nursing programs especially are getting real creative because we have a national shortage. And so to
Right.
hear that you've not just got the pathways and sort of the enrollment, but you've actually got the outcomes and all the way into potentially having those loans or scholarships absolved. I don't know what better value proposition higher ed could stand on than that. And so it seems like you're really building a model campus for other institutions to follow along on. So it's been amazing to hear about that and really
Yeah.
appreciate
Well, thank
this.
you. Well, and I go back to business and industry. I think we can do both. I don't think it has to be either or.
That's right.
And with a lot of these industry jobs are smart jobs now, and you're going to need somebody to figure out how to solve a puzzle. And when you figure out how to make those 40 people, those 40 instructors happy or 40 bosses happy, you're solving a puzzle. Now, I mean, we have faculty that are far left and faculty that are far right, but the majority of them are kind of in the middle. But I think everybody should have that wacky professor a little bit that's
Totally.
kind of out there, you know. I mean, it's a growth period that those of us that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, we got it in high school a little bit. And now because of the Pavlov dog of the ringing the bell and just, another, to quote Pink Floyd, another brick in the wall. But you think about it, I was listening to that song the other day, and that my students feel like that, because they were told for 18 years of their life, you can be anything you want to be, do anything that you want to do, go anywhere that you want to go. Uh, and my son still thinks he's going to the NBA. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm 5'11" and my ex-wife is about 5'3". I said, you're not going to the NBA. But we tell them that they can. You can do anything you want to do. Go anywhere you go. But then they come to college or they come work for a boss and they can't adapt. And so what I think is that there can be a mix between go to college, get that skill training. I think everybody should have a skill. So I agree with Mike Rowe on principle, but what I disagree with is painting us all in this big, huge, broad brush that we're sitting around learning about communism all day. Because I tell you, in the defense of my other president friends, and I have a lot, we're fighting for our students every day, scholarship dollars. We're fighting for money for faculty, money for staff. When I finally had a budget increase, my first, our budget runs 2 years in the rear. So I inherited when they went from 6,200 down to 4,700. I inherited those 2 years of budget. And so my first positive year, we had 600K, and we took that 600K. I had 33 employees that made less than $40,000, which is minimum wage here, our poverty level living. And so we raised all 33 of them up to $40,000. It cost me about $125,000, but well worth it. I mean, I was losing people that were going to sell cell phones at Verizon or sliced brisket at Bucky's. I don't know if y'all
Good
have
for you
Bucky's up
because higher
there,
ed
but
doesn't always tackle that salary challenge that we have.
yeah.
It's at one point I remember, I don't know how many years ago, it must have been 4 years ago, and I came into an institution that were still paying what I started in admissions in 2003 or
Wow.
2002. So that's
Yeah.
a thing, Samir.
Yeah, and when
Wow.
you travel, you lose money. We're always nickel and diming our own employees. Another program we started, Samir, which you'll love this one. So every year, Joe, I don't know if you ever had to deal with this, but in college, Samir, we have the thing that all presidents hate the most, and it's called the drop list.
Hmm.
And we have about 1,000 on the drop list every year. Now we work it down, we get it down as low as we can. And what that means is that means the student has filled out that long application, paid a $30 application fee, had their high school transcript sent, had their college transcript sent, went to orientation, met with an advisor, registered for classes, did every single thing, but they don't pay. right? And so why have they done these 8 things and the last thing they don't do is going to pay? And I'll tell you why. It's because they go home and they got a flat tire. Or they go home and their kid says, I want to be in the band. Or they go home and they they lose a spouse, or they some tragics happen. And guess what happens? You always put ourselves on the back of nature. And so we were sitting around one day and we were looking at the drop list, and my provost said, well, this one only owes $10. He's like, I'll pay the $10. And my CBO was like, well, this one owes $20. I'll pay his $20. And so we came up, we said, okay, we're all gonna pay $600. And we sent an email out on a Friday afternoon to faculty and staff and said, we're creating this $200 scholarship called Ready to Start. And we're gonna focus on our students that are on the drop list that owe less than $700. And they can come up with a little bit, we'll cover up to $200 of it. And by that Tuesday, we had already raised $12,000 just from
Wow,
our
good for you.
people. We just had a gala last month, and we did a silent auction, and there was, I think we put that scholarship up as somebody that you could buy, and we had over 35 people buy that scholarship. So, students, I heard somebody say one time, and Joe, it might have been you, but students don't care what you know until they know you care. And I believe that. That's why I spend every fall or every spring, the first week of semester, they clear my calendar, and I just walk from classroom to classroom and talk to students and talk to faculty, because they pay me a lot of money to be their president, and I want them to know who I am. I put my cell phone number on my business card. I give it out at orientation, and it freaks my staff out when I give out my cell phone number. But I've been doing it for years, and nobody's ever abused it. Um, and so, but anyway, so I think higher ed is important. I think it's a growth period. Here's another example. So think about a traditional college, and you graduate at 18 and you want to be a nurse, right? 4 years to get your nursing. Let's pretend that you're prepared, your ACT, everything's in the right place. You go right in. 4 years you're going to be a nurse. So that means you're 22 years old, taking blood out of me or putting medicine in me at 22 years old. Now, and I don't know why this coincidence, I mean, this is just coincidental to the story. Our average age in our freshman nursing class is 29 years old. The
Hmm.
average age, 29 years old. Now, I'm sure that, I think I told you we had a guy that was 77 that graduated. I'm sure he might have scaled it up there. But think about it. So now if you go to a 4 year school and get a nursing degree, you got a 22-year-old nurse walking in your office. If you're one of our nurses and you're not graduating to 31, 32, that's who you have walking into your hospital room. And having 3 kids, I have a 20 and two 18s. I can tell you, I'd rather have that 30-year-old walking into my hospital room than those. To me, 22's young. So
Yeah. Well, amazing stuff, and I just love again your story. It's such an amazing one, and the strategic mindset you've had and the tactical ability to put that in place is obviously paid off here. And one thing I'm curious on is I'm sure on the personal front, balancing sort of being a campus leader, the community outreach and service and engagement you hope to have with the local workforce, and then of course being a parent must be quite the juggling act. I'm
it's not
curious
easy.
how you stay grounded through it all. What keeps you sort of chilled out and remembering that there's more to life and that you're sort of a whole human.
That's great. When I first moved here, I put on like 40 pounds, and so I had to do some corrective action there. But you know, I've heard people say that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I really, really do love what I do. I love connecting with students. I can't go into a restaurant. My kids will say, Dad, please don't talk to the waiter. They don't all need to go to school.
He's always recruiting. I know
That's
my boy.
it. That's it. The ABCs always be
That's it.
recruiting. But no, little do my kids know when I go see a phlebotomist, or if I get you to pause for 10 seconds, I'm going to ask you what you're doing, and what
Yep.
can I do to help. I give a scholarship in my mom's name every month. I give her $500, and what I do is I go out into the community, and I'll give a business. I run into tons of adults that have some some courses, but no degree. And so even that, or somebody that didn't go to college or that started and stopped, and I'll give them my business card, and I'll say, if you'll take one class, I'll pay for it. Your first class is paid for.
That's
And
great, Mike.
and 90% of the time they're eligible for financial aid.
That's right.
Uh, and so, and Samir, you'll love this. My mom has dementia. She's 90. She'll be 90 in December. My stepmother, who is still on morphine and a lot of other things, they talk on the phone all the time. So,
Yeah.
they became good friends after when my dad came back in my life. We prayed together, and I didn't really forgive him at that time, but through prayer, I've been able to heal that wound.
Yeah.
Um, but my two moms, who both love me dearly. My mom doesn't know I'm a president. She doesn't even know I live in Georgia, but because she's back home in Birmingham, where I'm from. But
This
yeah,
is where I say, if you see Mike Hobbs, if you ever see Mike Hobbs, Samir, find a bar, grab a drink, and you're gonna hear some of the most crazy stories you ever
Oh,
heard.
yeah.
He gets me, and I'm like, "Are you kidding? Like that's an
I
amazing
love it.
story." So,
I love it. I love this idea of we've all, in some form or fashion have family members that have come from off the beaten path. And I certainly consider mine as an immigrant, a proud immigrant American now. And, plenty of folks at our company, plenty of students we've interacted with over the last 11 years that have had some, immense challenges to overcome. And I think in a weird way, sort of higher ed can provide this amazing family or environment for further development and give you real hope. You started this conversation off, Mike, just to close us out on the subject of, impact. And in the same way that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I also believe if you help people,
Mhm.
that feeling selfishly feels great. But when you really see that individual overcome and get to the other side, there's no better feeling. And, that's what's kept me going for 11 years. And, I certainly hope the trust and the encouragement and the optimism of our education system persists because there's a lot here and it's not always obvious at face value, like you said, just looking at a piece of paper on the wall. So, Mike, it was an amazing conversation. Joe, I'll
Yeah,
let you close
absolutely.
us out here.
yeah, Mike, we want to leave the mic to you. Give you the last couple words. Tell us anything else we forgot to talk about or you want to say about Georgia Highlands College, and maybe give us a few thoughts about what you see for the future of higher education as an industry.
Block out your calendar, bring your team, and lock in your spot because Insights EDU early bird pricing ends December 15th. We'll see you in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. For 3 days, that will disrupt what you think you know about marketing and enrollment for today's modern learner. Support the EdUp experience for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life. You'll get ad-free early access to episodes. But hurry, price goes up after December 31st, 2025. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and click support the show.
Right. No, wow, that's so much there, and I think I want to, just recently I was meeting with a finance planner, and he's also about to become a keynote speaker, and he has his name's Tommy Jackson. If you look him up, he's out of Georgia. Just a great story, and he said, your mom instilled that optimism in you, and I never. I never realized that until he said that. And so as a president, the crown is heavy. I mean, you have to make tough decisions. We have over 350 employees full time and about another 200 part time. And every single thing I do impacts somebody in multiple ways. And so, I'm grateful to be here. Georgia Highlands, uh, the Cartersville campus has 5 museums. If you're ever close by, I'd love for you to come check those museums out. Joe, you've got to come talk to my people. I want my people to hear the exact. Samir, I don't know if he told you, but they had the Department of Education person skipped out, and they threw Joe to the lines. He had to do an immediate impromptu keynote, and of course he was fantastic. But Joe, I definitely want you to come down and talk to our people. They need to hear it from somebody other than me, because and
Can't be a
Samir,
prophet in your own land. It's true, no
that's
matter who
it,
you
right?
are.
Well, and I have to tell you this. So, when I first got here, I like to motivate people, right? I'm an optimist and I feel like I motivate people. And so I said, so on our 5 campuses, we have one that has a 55-acre lake. And I said, if we get to 6,000, now we were setting at 4,700. And I said, if we get to 6,000 students, I will swim my tail across that Paris Lake. We hit 5,904 this fall. And so they're making up little pictures and putting floaties on my desk and, and all kinds of things. But it's just, I love it. I love what I do. Somebody did it for me. And when I was dean of students and when I was at UAB, I always handled code of conduct. And I would tell my students, look, you're at crossroads. You can either take this and have the dean of students on your side all the way through your 4 years, or have the dean of students not on your side. And almost every single one of them, the ones that didn't just disappear, I'm still in touch with today. Several call me dad or pops, or, let me know how they're doing. And I met most of my hardship students or students that I work with through student disciplinary. And so I think it's important. My favorite saying is Mark Twain. I never let schooling get in my way of an education. And I think
Before you go, what's that say? I know that's your favorite saying, but what's that sign say behind you before we let you go?
Wait.
Says, you don't have to be crazy to be crazy, or something like that, right in the corner?
It says you don't have to be crazy to work here. We'll train you.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you do have to be crazy to do these podcasts, 1,200 of them, but only because it's so good to have these conversations, crazy in a good way, to be able to highlight these amazing college presidents and leaders across the United States, frankly, across the globe, doing great work, and say, you know what, what's good? What's good about higher ed? We got good people doing great work, and that's what the EdUp experience is all about. Mike, thanks for being here, and thanks for co-hosting with me.
All right, Joe, I'm going to give you one challenge. I want you to look up Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Scott Sykes is who turned me on to Napoleon Hill. I'm telling you, you're the makings of the next Napoleon Hill. So he wrote Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
I'm saying take what you're learning from all these presidents and help us learn from each other.
Yep.
I heard a person say one time, you are who you surround yourself with. And that is so true.
It's true.
Yeah. Now he's in jail.
That's another podcast episode of the EdUp experience coming soon.
Yeah,
look at Health South.
You get a chance.
We're going to be talking about guys who went to jail and moms in Mexican prisons, apparently.
Oh, there's
Ladies
even more.
Gentlemen, he's your guest today.
That's it.
He's Dr. Mike Hobbs. He's president at Georgia Highlands College, and it's been a pleasure. You just EdUp.